Hey everybody, March 23rd, again another wrap up. Before we know it, March is going to be over and we're into April, and then you know, and on and on and on. Like I said, we're going to be eating turkey before we know it. Anyway, March 23rd, interesting day. iPads are out, and where are we at? Well, we're still advancing in the listening course, the Listen and Recognize course, and in the vocal intermediate voice course. So I'm hoping that you guys are working on them. I think you are. I can tell by just looking on the site and seeing who's opening what and checking out what. So on the Listen and Recognize, where are we at? Well, we're actually at the key of E major and the key of the F major scale. And the whole idea here when you're doing these Listen and Recognize things is to get the number thing going in your head and then take the time to actually know the letter names. So when you think in different keys, you can think in numbers, and you can also think what the actual pitches are. And it's just a good thing to put a label onto something. That's why we learn notes. It's a really cool thing to understand how these chord progressions, well, you're going to understand how chord progressions work. That's what this Listen and Recognize is moving up towards. You have actually been working on, and continue to work on, the bass notes that will become the roots of various chord progressions. And as you start to understand that and you start to hear the more common chord progressions, it's easier to come up with a spontaneous improvisational things with your voice, as far as singing, doing R&B things. But even if you're not into that, even if it's not about singing like an R&B singer or singing like a jazz scat singer or doing any of those things, you still want to understand how chords work and where they move around. It will help you sing melody lines in tune. It'll help you respond to the sound of a major chord or a minor chord. And as you start to do that, you'll understand why the melody line works a certain way to the chord progression. Just kind of opening up your mind more about this. So anyway, this whole point about the numbers, you've got numbers and you've got letter names. And the numbers are really cool because you don't have to think about anything but this pattern that no matter what key you're in, it could be the same recurring pattern. That's what's cool about relating to the number system. But adding the notes to it is like putting a name onto something. And as you start to, and not start to, you've been doing this now, you are, if you're doing the Listen and Recognize series here, you're being asked to sing the numbers and you're being asked to actually sing the letters within the scales. If you're familiar with them, fine. Enhance it, make it better. But if you're not, this is even better for you, because now you're starting to put a label to sounds and hear notes. This brings you to a different level in your musicianship. And yes, singers need to be musicians. Of course we do. We have the greatest instrument of all, really. It's the most expressive instrument. We can do more with a human voice than the greatest instrumentalists in the world. Not that they're not great at what they do, but still, a solid piece of wood or metal is never going to match up to the little inflections that the human voice can do in shading. So we want to get better. And I want you to get better in your ear training, because I know that that's one of the ways that I can improve your pitch concepts and hearing where things really go. Now, the other thing is just flat out working on your voice. And we're still in the head voice exercises, but they're exercises that are starting to strengthen your voice a little bit, and that's a good thing. And as I was telling you before, what's going to happen is that pretty soon we're going to be through the head voice exercises and then go back and start to do the mix exercises. Now, the one thing that I want to address here, because I want to always talk to you like you're my private students, and that is that don't just do these sort of by rote. Understand what you're looking for. Always go back to the beginning concept of these sirens that I showed you in the beginning of the intermediate course here, and also a little bit with Neil on Neil's first lesson. Go back to those lessons and take a look at those, and make sure you understand that the is really important. Now, the front end warm-up exercises that I gave you are this one octave, this octave and a half, chromatic scale in 2 octaves. Do that all the time. Constantly be working on that. The chest voice exercises, the head voice exercises, the mix exercises are about building your voice. They're about strengthening those areas of your voice. But while you're doing that, I want you constantly always to be working on those exercises with a mum and a lip roll and so forth, because you're working out the air balancing. You're working out just sort of the general place that your voice should be, not the loudest, not the softest, but this kind of middle balanced place that you keep on working to move back and forth between every area of your voice. Very, very important while we're developing the strength exercises and the resonant chord compression exercises. That's what's happening right now, both in the head voice and chest voice exercises that I've been giving you. Want to take a little time out here, and as you hear me doing it, talking to you about that, so you'll have your concept going about working out your air balancing exercises. Always use those opening warm-up scales. Perfecting those is really, really crucial in making all of this work. And then you go into these other exercises that start to build the various areas of your voice. Okay, so talking to you a little bit here, the weekly wrap-up really is the same old deal. We've got some head voice exercises. They're important. Work on them. We've got some more scales, and before you know it, we'll be through the all 12 of the major keys, and then we'll move on to the next point in the listen and recognize, which is fun, and get you to start to hear about chords and also about moving harmonies. And as we start to work on the moving harmonies, if you've been doing all of your lessons up to that point, I think then you'll see how the listen and recognize and the singing concepts, the building of your voice, how those things really do start to come together. Because I've got some ways of connecting even the 2 courses that's coming up. So keep working on them, have patience, and a little bit of tenacity, and it's really going to pay off for you, I promise. Okay, we're wrapping it up. I hope to see you on the site all week long, and you'll see me in the wrap-up next week.